I decided to challenge myself to build the best price to performance PC I could using only second-hand parts, so let's find out what I managed to get. Introducing Cheapskate, the PC that packs a major punch for the price and should satisfy any AMD fans out there. The rules and guidelines I set myself for this build was as follows. Number 1, all parts must be second-hand for the best price to performance ratio. Number 2, I could not buy from anyone known to myself or buy any deal that they had set up for me, so all purchases had to be something anyone could get. Number 3, the system had to have an upgrade path, whether the CPU be overclockable, a larger power supply being installed to support better graphics cards, or extra DIMM slots for more RAM in the future. It had to have a clear upgrade path. Number 4, the components had to be balanced, so no severe bottleneck was present. Number 5, finally, it must be powerful enough to run modern games at some reasonable settings with somewhat decent frame rates at 1080p resolution. Now that's out of the way, let's see what parts I scored and for how much. Let's start with the CPU, which is the FX 6300 I purchased for $60 from Gumtree. This 6-core CPU is quite weak when matched with higher tier modern GPUs, but for this build it is perfect and also overclockable. These CPUs should be cheap and plentiful thanks to Ryzen's release. For the motherboard I found a Gigabyte GA990FXA D3 on eBay for $35, which was an awesome find. Being a 990 chipset motherboard, this should allow for a decent overclock on the CPU hopefully. To cool the CPU I got a Cooler Master Hyper T4 from Gumtree for only $20, which is a nice little air cooler and should keep temps reasonable enough for a mild overclock. The GPU is a 3GB MSI R9 280 I got for $120 from eBay, which is a steal and this should pump out some decent frame rates for the price. For RAM, I have two 4GB sticks of Corsair Vengeance 1600MHz I picked up for $30 from a Facebook buy and sell group, which will be a welcomed addition to the build. Storage is up next, and an SSD was not an option for price to performance, so I got a 500GB Hitachi 7200 RPM drive for $20, again from a Facebook group. Powering the system is a Sigmatech 600W power supply for $35 from eBay, which will run the system and any future upgrades with ease. For a case, I found a Cooler Master Centurion 5 ATX for $20 from a Facebook group again. This case is pretty bland looking, but will accommodate everything, which is all we need it for. Adding all that up, if you didn't, is $340, which is an incredibly cheap build to get anyone into the PC gaming scene. Onto the build time lapse, so sit back and enjoy. Benchmarks are up next, and I tested all games at some high settings, so if you see any numbers you don't like, all you would have to do is tone down a few settings like anti-aliasing or textures for a smoother frame rate. I managed to get an overclock of 1160 on the core and 1575 on the memory on the GPU, which should add a nice little boost to the frame rates. The CPU was also overclocked to 4.5 GHz at 1.435 volts, which will help processing all those frames. I also put the PC through the Battlefield 4 render test, which it rendered out the 1 minute 22 gameplay video in 3 minutes 39, which is okayish for an old CPU, so thankfully I got it cheap. If you would like to see the entire render test video, there is a link in the description, and in the description of that video is the times and video links to every PC I've built on this channel. I also put the CPU through a Cinebench R15 stress test, which received a score of 491, which again is not the greatest, but it's okay. The CPU idled at 22 degrees and reached a maximum of 64 degrees under a 20-minute 8/64 stress test, which is well within its thermal threshold. The GPU idled at 39 degrees and reached 76 degrees under load, which is fairly reasonable with an overclock. In conclusion, Cheapskate is a wicked PC for the price, and I feel I did very well to hit all my guidelines and rules. You could do so much with this PC, such as upgrading the CPU to any of the 8300 or 9500 variants, add a better CPU cooler for higher overclocks, a better GPU for some higher frame rates, or more RAM to make it a nice editing rig. I'm happy with this PC, and I hope the future owner will be too. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, please consider subscribing for more PC builds and other content in the future. If you have a suggestion, question or criticism, leave a comment, and thank you very much for watching.